Okay, I am so pleased to be able to do this movie. Um, this is a little flick called R.O.T.O.R. Uh, Now, this is a sort of bad movie that's been gaining sort of a reputation recently, and it just a couple days ago managed to get into the bottom 100. When I was looking it up initially, I noticed that it was within 50 votes of qualifying and had a low enough score to get in. You have to have 1,500 votes to get into the bottom 100, and it was almost there. So I made a pretty significant push to try and get our bad movies on Reddit to vote to get R.O.T.O.R into the bottom 100, and I was obviously going to get there eventually, but I think I got a few extra votes on there to get it towards it. But I was so happy to see at the beginning of this week that it made it in there, because this movie is awesome. Uh, so R.O.T.O.R is a evil robot cop movie. So it's kind of along the lines of like, I guess it's sort of like a RoboCop style Terminator-ish robot. It has like prime directives. It's designed for like a future in which there's just crime everywhere all the time. It enforces the law regardless of the law to lethality. Um, it's not supposed to be ready for something like 40 years or something like that, and somehow it's magically activated. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're introduced to Detective Cold Iron, it's actually his name in the movie, uh, who's the head of like some sort of tech division of the Dallas Police Department. He dresses ridiculously, and almost all of his lines are ADR'd. It seems like I think everyone's lines are ADR'd, but he actually has some great ridiculous lines. And like his interactions with his boss, there's one scene where they're talking on the phone that's just ridiculously written. It doesn't make sense. Um, yeah, he has one. He's describing Rotor, and he's like, well, it doesn't have any ability to reason or have like a proportionate response to things. It's designed to just kill to any kind of law breaking. And he describes it, Rotor, as like a chainsaw set to frappe. What does that mean? I think he's thinking, well, yeah, like a frappe is something that's like blended really violently. But with a chainsaw, the only thing I can picture is somebody trying to make a giant milkshake with a chainsaw. Uh, yeah, that's just such a bad. There are a bunch of lines like that that are just ridiculous. Um, yeah, there's a lot to say about the writing. It's just so bad. Also, everything being ADR'd is really, really bad. The cinematography and pacing is abysmal. There's one shot where we get almost like over a minute straight of him walking out of his house to go feed a horse. It goes on a long, long time. We also get a bunch of fight scenes where the fight is just happening at a weird angle. There's one point in the climactic fight where the fight is actually going on in the background while Cold Iron is helping a woman in the foreground. Um, wow, there's a lot to cover in this movie. Um, yeah, so there's also a talking robot cop that's never addressed who's part of Cold Iron's team that's really, like, snarky, but also, like, really cowardly. It's like a cowardly, snarky police robot that even wears, like, a little police cap. It doesn't factor in at any point, unfortunately, except it does tender its resignation eventually after everything goes wrong. Um, so yeah, Cold Iron's developing this thing, and then he gets a call from his boss that's like, so I was talking to your investor, and he was angry, so I told him we're going to get results in the next 60 days. So that's on you. And then after telling him that this is on him to produce results in 60 days, he says he's fired and hand it off to the next guy, which is like, wait, what? Anyway, who cares? Um, this movie's amazing. Um, so Rotor. Rotor, when we're first introduced to him, is like as a skeleton, and he just sort of dances around a little bit. It's really bad effects for sure. There's a lot of that in this. Um, so Rotor eventually, through shenanigans where they're trying to produce results within 60 days, they like turn them on or something, and things happen, and there's electricity effects, and a really weird Indian stereotype that I don't even know how to describe. That's like hitting on someone, and somehow that plays into how Rotor's activated. Who knows? Rotor's activated and steals a bike that's designed for him for the like robot cop that's not supposed to be ready for 20 years. He has a bike with his name on it. He steals it and starts going out and enforcing the law. Uh, so they quickly realize he's escaped and is causing havoc, so they call Cold Iron to fix it. Cold Iron, of course, can't fix it. He doesn't know how to fix it. He, for some reason, has some action hero qualities. Whatever. He eventually kind of gives up on trying to stop R.O.T.O.R. and then calls in somebody else we weren't introduced to who was involved in the design of R.O.T.O.R., which is this really buff woman who has this really crazy hairdo that, like, has a stripe in it. I don't even know how. It's really strange. But she's awesome and actually goes toe-to-toe with R.O.T.O.R. for a while before being electrocuted, I guess? It's weird. She decides during the final battle to just start tearing into R.O.T.O.R.'s chest and really just rips him open. And then there's, like, weird negative inverse color effects. And then she dies because reasons. Anyway, elsewhere in this movie, R.O.T.O.R. decides to follow this one person because of a traffic violation and doesn't stop. So they use her as bait to trick him out into going to a place. And then they draw and quarter R.O.T.O.R. in order to beat him. But there's an interesting detail here. One of the ropes is going from R.O.T.O.R.'s, like, neck or something. No, he breaks the one on his neck. He's got one on his leg that's tied to a car. One of his arms is tied to a tree. And then there's one that's going into the lake or something, over in another direction that they never established what he's tied to. In any case, they drive a car and then pull him apart and he explodes. So, happy day, R.O.T.O.R.'s been defeated. Cold Iron's taken out of the station and reports what all's happened, and then as he's leaving, somebody shoots him dead, so that they could bury his report and not talk about how this went really wrong. So that's... Yeah, then there's like a teasing thing. We get a lot of voiceover in this that you think is from Cold Iron's perspective after the fact, but apparently Cold Iron's dead, so it's actually his brother reading in Cold Iron's voice out of his journal. And then, you know, Cold Iron's brother at MIT or something gets all of his information and everything he did to design R.O.T.O.R., and it teases a sequel in which the buff woman is turned into a new R.O.T.O.R., and they actually say R.O.T.O.R. 2, and it's like, this is not getting a sequel. I don't know what you were thinking. But yeah, this is a really thoroughly, enjoyably incompetent movie. The cinematography, like, for action shots is so weirdly shot. Like, there's no tension or anything. There's no action or motion. The pacing is weird. We get these really long scenes of nothing happening. Like, there's one scene where a couple is arguing in a car, and we get that for, like, a solid, like, minute or two. It has nothing to do with anything. And that happens a lot. There's weird little details, like the cop robot. Not R.O.T.O.R., but the other one, who just decides to resign over the phone at one point. He doesn't play into the plot. He's just kind of there. Yeah, the acting is not good. I actually thought the main guy was okay-ish. The way he delivered some of these lines was amazing. So bad. But all the writing, it really feels like they were writing this on the fly, like almost as they were shooting this. Like the whole scene with him and his boss on the telephone. His boss keeps repeating himself a lot, and it doesn't make much sense at all. I don't know, maybe it was improv. I doubt it. You'd have to be a horrible improv person to manage to fuck it up that bad. But who knows? Maybe it was already irreparably fucked at that point. I can't recommend R.O.T.O.R. enough. This is such a weird experience. It is all on YouTube. I actually have a DVD copy because it's only really released, I believe, in this massive, like, 60-film collection, which has a bunch of other great stuff on it. But yeah, R.O.T.O.R. Man, what a movie that is. This has been one of my favorite ones to watch in the Bottom 100, just because it really is. I think it's good bad. There's a lot going on in it. All the ADR, like, recorded after the fact lines, and it's really obvious that's what they did. So much bad shooting and everything, but it's got a charm to it. It's got a ridiculous charm. That's R.O.T.O.R. Watch it. Definitely a recommend. It's sitting, like, in the 40s as it broke into the list. It already had a pretty low rating, at, like, 2.2 out of 10. Definitely check out R.O.T.O.R. High recommend.
25 years in the future, the ultimate weapon against crime will be the judge, jury, and executioner. And it will not be human. But here, the future has already arrived, 25 years too soon.
Impossible.
Robotic.
It's okay, honey. It's a police officer.
Officer. Tactical. Operation. Research. R.O.T.O.R. Its prime directive. To judge and to execute anything that stands in its way.
The rotor walked through a busload of nuns to get to a jaywalker.
The perfect police officer.
It won't stop.
A prototype of what is to come. But pray, it never comes to this.
He's programming himself.
An unstoppable force. Without flesh and blood. R.O.T.O.R.